All right, let's talk about a plant you probably heard of, but maybe not in the way you'd expect. I'm talking about alfalfa. And yeah, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't that for cows? Well, yes, but it's also a herb with a fascinating history of human use that goes back for ages. So that really brings us to the big question, right? Is this stuff just fancy animal feed, or could it be some kind of hidden superfood for us? That's exactly what we're going to dig into. We're going to look at what's inside it, what the potential health perks are, and this is a big one, the really important reasons why some people absolutely need to steer clear. So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll cover its wild journey from the farm to the health food aisle. Then, we'll peek under the hood and see what it's made of. After that, we'll get into the potential health benefits, followed by some super important safety warnings. And to wrap it all up, we'll talk about how you can actually get it into your diet, if it's right for you. Okay, let's jump into part one. Before it was a sprout in a salad, alfalfa had a whole other life. And by the way, you might also hear it called lucerne, or if you want to get all scientific, medicago sativa. So, this plant story starts way, way back in South and Central Asia. For hundreds and hundreds of years, its main gig was being the absolute best of the best food for livestock. I mean, it's packed with vitamins and proteins, so it makes sense. But then, boom. Fast forward to today, and you see it everywhere. In health food stores, people are eating it as these crunchy sprouts or taking it in supplements. Talk about a career change, huh? So you gotta wonder, what caused this massive shift from the barn to the blender? To figure that out, let's take a look at what's actually inside this stuff. Let's unpack its nutritional profile. First off, get this. An entire cup of alfalfa sprouts has only 8 calories. 8. That's next to nothing. This is exactly what people mean when they say nutrient dense. You're getting a ton of good stuff for a teeny, tiny calorie price tag. And here's what's packed into that super low-cal cup. You're getting a solid 8% of your daily vitamin K, which is a big deal, and 6% of your copper. Plus, you've got some vitamin C, folate, magnesium, iron, the list goes on. So yeah, this is way more than just crunchy water. But wait, there's more. It's not just about the classic vitamins and minerals. Alfalfa is loaded with these things called bioactive plant compounds. That sounds complicated, but just think of them as these tiny, powerful natural chemicals in the plant that can actually interact with our bodies. And the real VIPs in alfalfa? A group called saponins. Remember that name because they're a big part of this story. All right, so if these compounds are the power players, what's their superpower? What do they actually do? Well, that leads us right into the really exciting part, the potential health benefits and what the science has to say about them. Remember those saponins I told you to remember? Well, here's where they take center stage. They seem to be the secret ingredient behind alfalfa's most well-researched potential benefit, helping to lower cholesterol. So how on earth does that work? Well, based on animal studies, it looks like a clever 1-2 punch. First, the saponins seem to jump in and block some cholesterol from even being absorbed in your gut. Then, for round 2, they help your body flush out the building blocks it uses to create new cholesterol. Pretty smart, right? And this is where we have to be really clear. The results from animal studies are definitely promising. They make you go, whoa. But, and this is a really important but, we just don't have enough solid research on humans yet to say for sure. So for now, it's an exciting possibility, not a slam dunk. And the cholesterol thing isn't the only potential perk on the table. For years, people have used alfalfa for other things, and some early research hints at them too. We're talking about things like helping with blood sugar, maybe relieving some menopause symptoms, that's thanks to those phytoestrogens we mentioned, and even providing antioxidant effects to fight cell damage. But, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, we need way more human studies to know for sure. Okay, now we need to hit the pause button. This next part is incredibly important, so please listen up. We're talking about safety warnings, because believe me, alfalfa is not for everybody. First on the list, anyone taking blood thinners like warfarin. You've got to be really careful here. Remember how we said alfalfa is high in vitamin K? Well, vitamin K's job is to help your blood clot. That's the exact opposite of what a blood thinner is trying to do. So they can basically cancel each other out, which is not good. Next up, a big one for anyone with an autoimmune disorder, especially something like lupus. It's strongly recommended that you avoid alfalfa. See, it contains this amino acid called L-cavinine that can actually ramp up your immune system.
And in people with lupus, that has been linked to flare-ups and a return of symptoms.
And last but definitely not least, let's talk about the sprouts themselves. The warm, damp conditions that are perfect for growing sprouts, well, they're also a 5-star resort for nasty bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella. Because of this risk, the official advice from the FDA is clear. If you're pregnant, a child, an older adult, or have a weakened immune system, you should avoid raw sprouts altogether. Period. Okay, so if you've listened to all those warnings and you're still in the clear, let's talk about the fun part. How can you actually get some alfalfa into your diet safely? You've basically got 2 main paths you can take. The first is supplements. Powders, tablets, teas. The pro, they're super convenient and the dose is controlled. The con, supplements aren't regulated by the FDA like drugs are, so quality can be a mixed bag. Your other option is to eat the actual sprouts. They're awesome in salads and sandwiches, adding this great crunch. But you've always got to keep that risk of bacterial contamination in the back of your mind. And hey, if you're feeling adventurous, you can totally grow these at home. It's surprisingly easy. You just soak the seeds overnight. Then, for the next 3 days, you just drain them and rinse them really well a couple of times a day. On day 4, you move them into some indirect sunlight, and by day 5 or 6, you've got fresh sprouts ready to go. The key, though, is being super diligent about that rinsing to keep things clean. So, let's bring it all together. What's the bottom line? Alfalfa is this really interesting plant. On one hand, it's packed with nutrients and shows real promise for promoting health. But on the other hand, for some people, the risks are no joke and absolutely need to be taken seriously. Which really leaves us with the final question, doesn't it? We've seen the good and we've seen the bad. Alfalfa is a plant with 2 very different sides. So the big takeaway is this. Is it right for you? Honestly, that's a question only you and your doctor can answer together. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.